Mr. President, there's a prohibition in the U.S. Constitution from cruel and unusual punishment. And the fact that you would be presiding in the chair when I am going to be speaking on an amendment which you are offering is truly cruel and unusual, but I'm going to inflict it anyway. I will try to be as gentle as I can in the process. I'd like to address what is known affectionately as the Tester-Corker Amendment. 1 year ago, to be more specific, about 11 months, we had a big debate on the floor of the Senate about Wall Street. What are we going to do about Wall Street and the practices on Wall Street which hurt our economy? Especially, we were worried about the last recession and some of the things that happened on Wall Street at the biggest banks and biggest insurance companies that hurt Americans across the board and caused us as a Congress, with President Bush's cooperation, to pass a basic bailout bill sending billions of dollars to these banks that had made stupid, reckless decisions that wrecked the economy to try to save them from going under. Here are the biggest financial institutions in the United States that have made terrible decisions, harmed individual families and businesses across the board, and then as they were about to sink out of sight, they said, you got to save us. You got to save us. Send us taxpayers' money. Well, I will tell you something. I voted for that. I'm not proud or happy of that. I thought to myself, this violates every value that I have about these Wall Street financiers and the way they operate, but I can't let the American economy go down. Let the American economy go down. And I think many senators felt the same way on both sides of the aisle. And how did they reward us? What was the thank you card that they sent to the taxpayers of America? They gave themselves bonuses. They gave themselves bonuses, multi-million-dollar bonuses. These same banks, in their reckless stupidity, driving us into a recession, bailed out by taxpayers, then came back and announced they were giving each other rewards for great performance. Millions of dollars. It finally ended up being billions of dollars to these big banks. Outrageous. So last year, we sat down in the Wall Street reform bill, the Dodd-Frank bill, and said, we're going to change some of the rules you play by up on Wall Street so that you never have a chance to do this to America again. And we went through a broad array of things that we considered. One of the things we considered affects virtually every single American, and that's the use of something called a debit card. Each time that debit card was swiped, the banks ended up taking a fee, except something was going on that we weren't aware of until we looked into it closely. They were raising the amount they were taking each time the debit card was used to now the highest level debit card transaction fees in the world. They charge on average 44 cents every time they swipe a debit card. So what we did a year ago was say, well, let's take a look and see what is a reasonable charge. Not what they're charging, but what's reasonable. The Federal Reserve established a reasonable, proportional debit card swipe fee so that consumers and retailers across America are not giving to the banks across this country, particularly the largest banks across this country, this windfall every time a debit card is swiped. Sounds reasonable to me. Well, what happened? What happened after we passed this? The banks and credit card companies across America went on a warpath. They have spent a fortune lobbying Congress, working the members back and forth, saying, you got to protect us. You can't let this new rule go into effect which reduces the fee that we collect every time anyone uses a debit card. Why would they lose sleep over 44 cents? Add it up. Every month in America, the banks are collecting $1.3 billion from consumers across America every time you use a debit card, every transaction to the tune of $1.3 billion a month. And that's why they have moved heaven and earth to stop this new rule from going into effect, which reduces the fees that these banks, over half of them, the largest Wall Street banks, are collecting. The only compromise is among the big banks and the bigger banks. I want to tell you, this amendment is written by and for the banks, the biggest banks of all, and it's not written with the consumers in mind. Look through all the organizations in this new amendment and try to find one consumer group, one small business group, one group of retailers who are part of establishing what a reasonable fee is. You won't find them. I think it's a critical amendment. I hope my colleagues will stand by me and the Federal Reserve in the vote we took last year.